You've probably heard that carrying extra body weight around worsens your arthritis. You may have even heard the forces in your knee are 4 times your weight, which is a decent estimate, though the multiplier kind of depends on what activity you're doing. If you're planning on a knee replacement though, your metabolic health influences so much more, including your risk for a skin infection or having to go back to the OR because of a much worse complication like a joint infection. So let me walk you through the 3 things you can do to most quickly tune up your metabolism and prepare for a knee replacement. But first, I'm Dr. Alex Watson, and I get people ready. In today's case, let's talk about how to get people ready for knee replacement surgery. One final note, I'm going to say you a lot in this video because if I keep it completely third person, we're going to go crazy saying the patient or my patient over and over. Despite me saying you, this is absolutely not medical advice. Follow what your doctor says, but if they have a different approach, maybe mention this to them and see what they think. All right, so let's jump right into it. Number 1, exercise. Even without losing a single pound, exercise can quickly rein in out-of-control blood sugar, improve long-term blood flow, and lower your overall inflammation. There is a concept in my field called metabolically healthy obesity. This is the idea that, depending on whose estimate you're using, roughly 25% of people with a BMI in the obese range, so 30 or over, may have no other objective signs of poor metabolic health. This is likely due to a few factors. Number 1, some people store weight in safer places like under the skin, subcutaneous, instead of around the organs, which is visceral fat. In the case of prehab, you're probably not going to shift weight storage around that quickly. I only mention this as a clear example of why weight doesn't necessarily mean poor health. Another factor ties into a recent study that I covered in another video. When controlling for activity level, research shows that the connection between BMI, your body mass index, and poor health gets a lot weaker. In other words, for someone that's more active, you can have a higher body weight and still not have signs of metabolic disease. This just goes to show how pleiotropic exercise is. In other words, how one intervention can work in many places in the body to give us better health. Exercise helps the muscle take up blood sugar better. The arteries become more elastic. The muscles will release anti-inflammatory molecules and stimulate more blood vessels to develop. This increases circulation to the areas that are furthest from the heart. So to recap, do not worry about the scale not budging after 6 weeks of dedicated exercise during prehab. Your surgical risk can still improve substantially. How do we do this? Well, for the ambitious who have the time, here's the best strategy I use. Likely a mix of low-intensity zone 2 training, higher-intensity interval training, and strength training with a build muscle strategy. I'd build a program like this. If you have 5 days per week, do 20 minutes of zone 2 training each day. This involves a steady-state exercise that is a low or moderate intensity. Essentially, bump up the incline of the treadmill a little bit and put it at a pace where you can hold a conversation without having to stop and catch your breath. May not want to have that conversation, but you can. That's usually a zone 2-ish pace here. Now for those higher intensity intervals, you want to do this after zone 2 on one of those days per week, but only do this if you're healthy enough. So again, this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, make sure you're safe to do this. Pick an activity like the elliptical or ski erg, or something else. I'm thinking about what doesn't bother the knee here. At an intensity you can only really sustain for like a minute or 2. Let your heart rate calm down for another minute or 2. Rinse and repeat the cycle 5 or 6 times and call that the day. That's it. On the remaining 4 days, do something like an upper body, lower body split. So for example, Monday can be upper body day with a chest pushing focus. So you hit everything, but maybe a little more of that is going to be pec related, pressing activities, shoulder pressing, things like that. That'll work all the muscles up here and hit the back muscles a little bit less. Tuesday can be a lower body day with a quad focus. So leg extensions, squats, things like that. Then on Thursday, that'll be another upper body day with a back or a pulling focus. So rows, pull downs, those activities with a little less emphasis on the chest and shoulders. Friday or Saturday, that is going to be your last of those 4 days. That can be a leg day with a glute or hamstring focus. We're putting together another video that will go through how to exercise with a bad knee, so don't worry about the impossibility of how that sounds. As far as how to do the strength training to focus more on building muscle than building strength, you want to keep it in a rep range that's going to be at least 10, 15, 20 reps at a time. You want to take that towards failure. So you want to get to the point where you can only truly do another 1 or 2 reps per set. If you feel like you have more in the tank, bump the weight up a little more so that you're still landing in that range there. So why those 3 different strategies? Combining those 3 will do 3 things here. Zone 2, that works on the mitochondria. This is the part of the cell that helps turn fuel into energy. More mitochondria and healthier ones that are better burning fat and other fuels like lactate means you have better overall metabolic health, more energy, you just feel better. The high intensity intervals improves your VO2 max. This is the max amount of oxygen your body can use at a given time. Doing this stimulates the development of new blood vessels, so better circulation, more red blood cells. Acutely, so in that moment, your body is better at taking up blood sugar into the muscles without using insulin in the process. It also improves how well your muscles will use oxygen for activities. So even though it's cardio, you're not actually training your heart or your lungs so much as you're training your muscles to better use what your heart and lungs are giving them. This is why even if you have a bad heart or bad lungs, if you can safely do the exercise, you will improve the way that your body can use whatever that heart and whatever your lungs are giving it. Strength training builds your body's reservoir for storing blood sugar. More storage space equals lower average blood sugars. It's also going to strengthen the muscles around your hip and knee joints, which reduces instability after surgery, amongst other benefits. So you'll feel better, less likely to fall, and how cool is all of that? Number 2, nutrition. Besides talking my favorite gym sessions, so much of my practice involves discussing nutritional tweaks to improve health with minimal effort. Most of this is pretty intuitive, but the highest yield moves involve increasing protein substantially for most people. Usually we're not getting nearly enough. Aim for roughly 125 to 150 grams spread throughout the day. You want to go for complete proteins, things that are like meat, dairy, pea protein. But it's okay to fill in the cracks with some other sources like chickpea, lentils, and soy if you're not a big meat or dairy eater. Most people, myself included, need a supplement. I like a nice whey, egg, casein powder blend because this will have a time release type effect. You could have the shake, in the morning and it's still in your system 6 hours later. I boost mine by adding some collagen peptides as well. Besides protein, add more fiber to the diet, either through eating fibrous foods like vegetables or chia seeds, or you can use a supplement like psyllium husk. This is the active ingredient in Metamucil, and that is an additional source of fiber that can be quite beneficial. This will help you feel more full longer and can help with blood sugar and cholesterol levels. Of course, minimize added sugars. If this means using artificial sweeteners, this is absolutely fine for most people. There are very rare cases of this being a bad idea, and unless you've been told you have a rare disorder called phenylketonuria, you're probably not in that camp. Allulose is a nice sweetener that may actually help lower your blood sugar too. Number 3 in the strategy here, aggressively refine your medication regimen to the doctor. This is where medications like tirzepatide and semaglutide come in, as well as others in the family of the SGLT2 inhibitors. These will improve your blood sugar without the expense of added weight gain like insulin-based medications can do, as well as actually improve the health of those small blood vessels, so it's really important for circulation. I do like metformin for other things, but not as much here, because there are some studies that metformin and theoretically berberine too may reduce the benefits you're getting from exercise, and exercise is really crucial during prehab. Blood pressure medications like telmisartan may have other metabolic benefits here too, besides just controlling your blood pressure. Hormone replacement therapy can be quite helpful for those who need it in accelerating metabolic health improvements, but this is obviously a case-by-case basis. If you have normal hormones, don't start taking TRT for 6 weeks before surgery. It's probably not worth the risk. Talk to your doctor. For women, if you're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, and you are in consideration for hormone replacement therapy, again, speak with your doctor and also your surgeon. Some people have concerns about blood clots when you're starting this prior to surgery. You want to get everyone's clearance on this one so you're not going to set yourself back. Peptide therapies beyond the GLP-1s is a bit of a gray area here. For completeness sake, peptides like tesamorelin may have multiple prehab benefits, including metabolic health improvements and muscle mass supporting effects. Compounds related to MOTS-c and SS31 may also have direct mitochondrial benefits, but these are even less regulated than tesamorelin. So you definitely want to do your research, speak with a doctor, and even then, it's not really well established before surgery, the safety and efficacy of these things. We'll talk about that another day. Overall, prehab programs are comprehensive for a reason. If you put together all these pieces with sleep optimization, quitting smoking, and stress reduction, you have a powerful reboot camp system that can quickly improve metabolic health before surgery. Each of those pieces improves the effect of the other ones. So doing it all together means in 6 weeks, you can reboot your health overall and feel fantastic going into surgery and even better coming out of it. So are you curious what comes next after a knee replacement? Well, there's a new movement that is lowering postoperative pain so much that some patients are getting away with needing a fraction of the normal pain medication amounts. Check out this video here to hear more about it and why it's causing a bit of a debate in my field. And thanks for watching.